everybody, it is Quicken, and welcome back to Tattoo Talk Tuesday. So if it's your first time joining us today, Tattoo Talk Tuesday is our little weekly interactive talk show where I take viewer submitted questions and try to lend my experience to you guys as a tattoo collector. So I would say one of the more popular questions I've been getting recently is, how do you build a sleeve? How do you incorporate tattoos together? How do you build a patchwork sleeve? Which is a word I like. I've never heard that before. I like that one. And I get questions like this, and I thought today, I have a really exciting episode of Tattoo Talk Tuesday for next week, so I thought it'd be really cool for me to just answer some of these more chill questions just by taking off my shirt and showing you. I have a traditional sleeve, and I want to today kind of just talk about the motions I did to build mine. So I will say that because I have more traditional style tattoos, it was easy for me to build on this. So I would say, I would say you have a couple options if you are building your sleeve. So I have seen questions like, how did you build your leg? How did you decide on your back? So just in this episode, I'm going to talk about my arm. I could do another episode on my leg. It might be a little redundant. Of course, the stories are going to be different because it is my leg and it's separate tattoos. So comment below or give this video a thumbs up if you want to see a leg building video as well. You guys are really awesome. I feel like I'm not going to be repeating myself in this video. It is pretty requested, so I'm going to dive into it. I hope that it's not like too obvious or too like common knowledge, but here we go. I feel like there is a couple ways you can go about getting arm tattoos. You could just get one or two. I've been seeing this really cool trend where someone will get just a very couple small tattoos that eventually fill up their arm. They're pretty small. You can tell that there's not going to be much of a connection to them. I see them happening. I see a lot of like Korean tattoo artists doing this. I also feel like these are more favorited tattoos by like celebrities or like influencers, people who aren't really interested in getting a ton of tattoos. My friend Angela, I feel like this is kind of the way that she's kind of leaning towards, these like really small like trinket tattoos that eventually there's like a lot of them. Sometimes I'll see like a little safety pin tattoo, little Saturn, stuff like that. Angela has like these cool angel wings. So that's one way you could go and have these little small tattoos that have lots of space around them so they don't ever need to be built upon each other. You could go completely for it and get a full arm tattoo that is all incorporated in one thing. I think the biggest challenge in getting a full like arm tattoo, all one theme, all one sitting, one big image, is you have to start with a budget. So the little tattoos that I described before, I feel like the people who wear these are more like impulsive, gonna get tattoos, gonna be badass, celebrate the night kind of people. I feel like if you are going to get the full, like, one cohesive piece on your arm, you have to have a good job. You have to have money to build on that. The other tattoos, $100 at a time, one cohesive sleeve, thousands of dollars saved in your bank account, lots of research picking out the artist. I think that these arm pieces go amazingly together. I love pieces that flow. I love pieces that are all done by the same artist and you can tell. I love viewing these things. I think they are works of art. And they're always awesome. I feel like growing up and like being introduced to tattoos, I feel like when I would watch like LA Ink or something, there's always one episode I think about where the girl got like shoulder to wrist, like this mermaid aquatic kind of scene. You guys know what I'm talking about. I think of that all the time, and that's always like really cool and stand out to me. But my mom, she had to have gone, saved up a cool meal, and got that all done. It's painful, it's your whole arm, but I mean, sessions. In real life, we have sessions, not like TV. So I'm gonna talk about why I didn't go down either of those paths. I mean, there's a million other ways you can get full arm tattoos. You can just get one tattoo. I just have the one tattoo on this arm. There's no rules. When I started with my arm, the first tattoo I ever got on my arm was the heart, lock, and key tattoo. And this kind of started off my arm. You can see that when my arm is down, imagine nothing else is here. It took up this much space, which is kind of a big daddy to start with. If I could go back, I feel like I would start with smaller tattoos or tattoos that don't touch. So how the rose is kind of incorporated into this, and then the diamond was incorporated into this, I feel like it creates like this blob. And I think tattoos are easier read when there's space in between them, unless you are getting that one big cohesive piece. So if I could go back, I feel like I would either get space in between here, or maybe build everything all as one. So I would say that a traditional tattoo usually does have more space around it, and this is more of a take on traditional tattooing. But this was the first tattoo I got. When I got this tattoo, I was not sure if I was going to continue to build my arm. I got that tattoo, and probably for about a year, it's the only one I had. Back when I started getting tattooed though, I did not have any money. It was probably not very responsible that I was spending the money that I did have on tattoos. But back then, you guys have probably heard me say it before, I was low on money, and I was selling. If I would get something of value, I would have to sell it. If I got a Nintendo Wii, I had to sell it, you know, my bike, stuff like that. So I was like, I'm gonna spend my money on tattoos. That way I can't wake up one day and be like, I have to pay my bills. You can't sell your tattoos. They're with you forever. Having tangible things was important to me. So yeah, I would spend money on tattoos. But that's where I think the magic of having this like patchwork or like traditional pieces working together really works for people like me. And I feel like we can all diagnose that as irresponsible spending. Strangers on the street have asked me, how much did you waste on those tattoos? And I'm like, what, the bad ones? But I just feel like most of us want tattoos, and the easiest way to get them are to get small tattoos that build into something. I mean, there's a million ways, but that's just my opinion, I guess, or the way I went about it. After I got this outline, I got the color, everything was broken up into pieces to be very affordable. After that, I got the rose because I thought that I wanted to have a piece that built on one another. And you can see that they kind of blend into one another. You could go this route and have all your tattoos like mesh and blur together. I just think because of the way that the rest of my tattoos are spaced out, it kind of looks like two different styles together. But it doesn't bother me. I think it wears well. And I think, you know, getting a big piece at the top of your arm can really help set everything else into place. It's going to be the biggest workable area that you get tattooed, and it's going to be easy for your tattoo artist to put something really nice there, and you have all this space. It's like if you had a really great idea and you wanted it to be executed perfectly, you would want it on your upper arm because it's flat, easy to work with. It's like if you gave your tattoo artist your upper thigh and you were like, go crazy. This is the upper thigh of your arm. And my inner arm didn't hurt that badly. I just think I went the wrong direction with it. I think I thought this would be a more subtle tattoo because it hides on the inside of your arm. But I would say it's still really noticeable and worth consideration. So the next tattoo after the rose I got was this Sawdust and Diamonds tattoo. It's based off of a Joanna Newsom song. And then there's like some branches, I guess, in here to like make it earthy and weird. Most people ask me if it's a bruise. So I think I should have put more consideration into this tattoo. It kind of does translate into like a big, I'm like stretching my arm, a big like blue blob and doesn't really translate much as a diamond. But I think this looks cool. I like this. Wee wee. When I got this tattoo though, I had not gone below the elbow yet, which, you know, you can have tattoos above your elbow and it's pretty easy to conceal. I think you can live a very normal, untattooed life if you continue to get tattooed above your elbow. So you could have a nice big piece with tattoos all along here and only share them when you have a tank top on. So after this tattoo, you know, I was getting these one at a time, coming into like $300 every once in a while. And that is when I jumped the elbow and went straight to my forearm tattoo. So getting this tattoo, it was the first tattoo on my forearm. I remember on BME Zine, they had this like photoshopped Xbox Live first visible tattoo accomplishment, and I remember I like posted that to my BME Zine. I was like, dude. But this was my first visible tattoo on my lower arm. I would say, you know, I was doing it very impulsively. I was like, you know, I would think normally you would work down the arm, but I wanted this tattoo. The tattoo artist kind of talked me into the placement, not in a bad way, but he was like, are you ready for your first visible tattoo? I think it would look great right here. Are you going to continue building your arm? Why not put it right here? And I said yes to both of those questions, so that's where the tattoo ended up going. I would say that it does take up a lot of space right here, and all of that space is valuable. You could get a great tattoo right there. It's great space, it's flat. Like the upper arm, it's a great space to get tattoos that have detail, that can be large. I feel like if I could tell myself, like, don't waste this on a small tattoo, that would be good advice if you are building up your whole arm. I would say this is a relatively bigger tattoo. This and then this take up this whole space. But finding a tattoo that did fit right here was a little hard because of the size of this. So I would say go big or get something pretty large there. But don't think that because that is the inner part of your arm that it's not visible, because it is. So don't try to hide anything there. It's a very visible tattoo. I'm only saying that because that was my thought process. I was like, love kills slow, my little secret. And it's like, dude, it's right there. After that tattoo, I went back up to my upper arm and I got this tattoo by Max Kuhn. Getting this tattoo right here really capped off this area. And I had to decide, like, am I going to keep building this like puzzle piece like mushed up all together? Or am I going to put something right here? So I decided to get this here with no other tattoos in the area. And that's exactly what it did. It capped off that area. Because of this, I can't get anything in here or around here. So I made that decision and then went with it. I talked to Max and Max was like, yeah, it'll look good right there. And I think it will. I mean, I think it does from behind, you know, with my arms crossed. You can see it really visibly right there. I think it looks pretty good when my arm is swinging. You can see it all the time. I think that that is still a really good space for a tattoo, still really visible. This is not a little secret spot. After that, I got this envelope by Mike Adams in this like little space right here. It's not too technically in the bend of my elbow, which is right here. You can see that it's like above that. And then it kind of gave me this space right here. When I got this tattoo right here, it really capped off this area because I already had this tattoo. So it created this space right here, which to this day has been a challenge to find a tattoo to fit in this area. So it's good to be conscious of that. But my wholesome advice is to not worry about it too much. Like, I wasn't like, no, Mike Adams, I cannot get that tattoo there. I was just like, do you think that's cool? Okay. So it did leave this space right here, but honestly, it really like isn't too much of a bother for me. I would say though, it started to create a mixed amount of styles on my arm. I would say that this leans in a more neo-traditional kind of sense, in a way, a light maybe. I would just say that this is a different kind of style, the Max Kuhn style. And then old Mike Adams style is a very different style too. I would say they are like bold, bright, traditional tattoos, but you can see differences in the color palette and kind of how they make my arm look. But that was fine. After that, I got the inside of my arm tattooed right here. This is a secret spot. If you get a tattoo here, you're never gonna see it, your friends are never going to see it. Don't put your favorite thing on earth there because it's basically hidden right below the bend of your elbow. There isn't really a great angle that I can really see this. I forget all the time that I have rain shoes as a tattoo. This might be the first time you guys have ever even seen my rain shoes tattoo. I just feel like they are just another representation of bad luck, which goes with this. How many people knew I had that tattoo? That's what I kind of mean. It's a really secretive spot. If you have a secret, put it right there. Like, it basically almost touches my envelope, but all you ever see is the envelope. After all that, it was kind of just like there was no method to building my arm anymore, and a lot of it was all about saving money, having just enough, and then getting a tattoo right away and starting over. I kind of fell into that almost till the end of my arm. But, you know, I was seeking tattoo artists who were working in the same style as my arm, and I think that that's important too. Straying out of the style can pose difficulties for you. I don't have a ton of styles that are too different from one another. Neo-traditional is only a half step away from like traditional, and then a half step below like American traditional. So I notice a difference between this top one and, you know, my Max Kuhn tattoo, because he does a very specific style. And then down here with my Mark Cross tattoos, I feel like boop, 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 all three are kind of a little different from one another, but it's not a leaping difference. So I don't have any great advice for mixing two different styles. I think that they should be on separate body parts. When I was younger, I thought that I wanted this entire arm to be a black and gray arm, and then this would be a color arm. I still think I might do that, but I think that's the best way to separate styles. I have black and gray mixed together on my leg, like, don't get me wrong, but I just think that that works best and is easier to read. I'm not telling you how to live your life. That's advice from me with no experience. I only have one style tattoo. After there was not really much more of a method to how I was getting my tattoos, I capped the bottom of my arm off with the cardinal. The cardinal flower does go onto the tip of my wrist, so this was kind of my last experience with having tattoos I could totally cover. Before that, I could wear a quarter sleeve and only my little sinking ship tattoo would show. Now, that was over. I had the cardinal. The cardinal was my most visible tattoo, and I guess still is because it does go down so far. With a long sleeve shirt, you can still see it. But from there, you know, I created this kind of monster where I had a tattoo here, and nothing else. Everything after those two tattoos was strategy. It wasn't too much of like me wanting something really badly, like, oh, I really, really want rain shoes. That was out. And this was, the rest of it was strategy. This rose is a filler tattoo. You can definitely see that the way it folds into here and the way it kind of dips into there and how the lines fit perfectly into here. It's all filler. Me. This was a filler tattoo that I got the same day, and it's a woman's hand shaking a man's hand. I told Mark that I wanted it to be obvious that like a woman was shaking a man's hand to kind of like represent peace within the sexes. I don't know what I was going through. I guess I was like, I hate men, but I'll live in the same planet as them. I don't know. So that caps off my elbow right there. I don't think I would get any filler in between here because I do like the 3 spaces it creates. This Big Daddy snake was done right before the rose. to kind of fill up this whole area here. I don't get to see this tattoo a lot, but I figure if you're walking behind me and I'm swinging my arms, you get to see it. So I would say that it's not wasted space. Definitely get something cool there, but you'll never see it. I can only see it when I do this and I'm looking into my viewfinder. So I would say be more conscious of the tattoos you put here versus here. And then this was the last tattoo I got on my arm, the Sacred Heart. This is a filler tattoo, like no doubt. I was just watching a ton of Scrubs and I was like, Sacred Heart, I want a Sacred Heart tattoo, and that's all this is. You can even see how Mark has the lines just to fill space. This is all a gap filler kind of thing. This is a large gap. I mean, it's definitely not space to waste, but I love the blood drips right on the wrist like that. When I wear long sleeves, that's all you can see, and that's really badass for me. But this was a filler tattoo just because this space was so straight and complicated. I feel like, what can you put there? A grandfather clock? Like, I didn't know what to really go there. When I needed that space covered, I went to Mark and I said, I need this space. Here's some of the ideas I had. Mark literally traced the space that I needed and drew a design within his tracing. Same with this, but this was a little more drawn on. And that is my arm. Other than that, I have my cobweb inside my armpit. I would say if you're working on a full arm tattoo, like, this isn't super crucial, but I do like the way it finishes the arm when you can kind of see my arm pitch like this. And then the branch is a cover-up. I like that, but it is like, you can kind of see it like this when my arm is down, but like not totally. But I think a tattoo in your armpit is pretty sweet. And I do like the way it looks, but you can't see it from behind at all. That's kind of like the story behind my arm and the method that I used while doing it. Like, I'm not a tattoo expert, I'm just somebody who has tattoos and has collected tattoos throughout the years with no money, some idea of what I wanted, no idea of what I wanted. I think if you're planning your tattoos, you know, get a couple big tattoos that you want and you like, and then eventually you'll have to get filler tattoos that fit the space but look good. I mean, my rose filler tattoo, I get a ton of questions about it, and I'm just like, oh, I just needed that, but sure. So people seem to like it, and I really love it. I love the way it looks. So I don't think there's a problem with having filler. A lot of people who have more traditional sleeves will finish off their arm with stars and dot filler. And that is just like tiny little stars and dots that go all along in between all the open spaces of the tattoo. And then my friend Alex Valencia, she took a different approach and she has like smoke filler, and the smoke filler is really tight. Wish it was my idea. Me personally, I think I'll leave my arm exactly how it is. Who knows how I'll feel next year or tomorrow. But as of right now, this is my arm. I like the empty spaces. I think they make the pieces more legible. And I am like a very freckled person, so it does help me kind of see where all my freckles are just in case. So I don't know. So yeah, that was kind of my method of building my arm sleeve. Let me know what you guys think, if you can relate, if you learned something new. Thank you guys always for the questions. I hope I answered most of them. I just think that building your arm is a very personal journey that you can get advice from some people, but in the end, you kind of just have to figure it out, and if you fuck up, get laser removal. 6 years of building my arm, and it was awesome. I didn't hate the blank spaces while I was going through it. They just encouraged me to save up and continue my passion of getting tattoos. Thank you guys so much. Give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. I make videos like this every Tuesday. Next Tuesday's video is going to be super tight, if you know what I'm talking about. And until next time, bye.